Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the MIT Integrated Design and Management Info Session, first one of 2019. My name is Matt Cressy. I am the founder and director of the program, and just very excited to welcome you to the info session to learn more about IDM. And over the next, hour or so, I hope that you get a very good idea about what IDM is, and if you don't, we'd love you to ask questions and be happy to answer them. A little bit later, I'll be joined by a student or two, and they can also help answer your questions and give their perspective as students about what the experience is like here at IDM. So I'll begin now with a PowerPoint presentation that kind of keeps me on track so I don't waste your time. And after that, we'll open it up for Q&A. For the panelists and Q&A. Okay, do we have the slides up? Great. Okay, so I'd like to begin with this slide right here because these are products that I think most people find really exciting. They also happen to be very strong businesses that are healthy and profitable. And I think as consumers, this is important. We want products that excite us and delight us and are valuable to us. And what's also great about great products that are really well designed is that you tend not to throw them away. So they're actually good design and really desirable products. They are elevated and just really wonderfully powerful emotional experiences that people will value. So in the upper left-hand corner, we have the Eames chair, by Herman Miller. That's been around for 50 years or so probably, sells for $6,000, just a very successful product. You buy one of those and you don't throw it away. You are going to give that to your children and they'll give it to their children. In the upper right-hand corner, Bang & Olufsen has been for decades creating really exciting audio equipment. Starbucks coffee, a great experience. So IDM, we teach things, methods about creating objects, but really an object is an experience. So that brings us to things like Starbucks, which is an experience. It's not so much a product, although the coffee is important, but it's really about an experience that has value that people go and spend money on. Pixar is similar in that that is basically a digital product that is presented in movie theaters and televisions around the world. But that is technology and a business that revolves around creating an incredible user experience. And so I think that's a really wonderful example of a successful company. And then lastly, at the bottom, you see Tesla Model S, which is, again, it's an electric car, which I think most people say, oh, it's an electric car, that's its value proposition. Well, that's really not it, because electric cars have been around since 1915. What's different about this car is that it's the first electric car that actually is cool. It's actually beautiful. It's something that you'd want to be seen in. It's something that would make a beautiful night out, right? It's an experience that's just amazing. And it's also very different. So, Elon Musk in creating this car and all the products in Tesla's product line has done a wonderful job of bringing emotional value, a high value experience to customers. And so I think this slide really represents what we want our students, our alumni, to kind of shoot for, to create these experiences like this that are just hopefully above the bar. So what do these successful companies all have in common? Well, they have this wonderful user experience that I just spoke about, but they're also profitable. They have a profitable business model, and they have exciting technologies that result from really good engineering. And so we see those three elements, design, business, and engineering, as being integral to those businesses. And I think many of you have probably seen this Venn diagram. This really explains, I think, a lot about what IDM is. We like this idea of bringing people with design backgrounds that can create desirable products together with people with business backgrounds that can create viability, together with people with engineering backgrounds that can create products that are feasible. And where those three worlds intersect, where that little red heart is where IDM lives and breathes. And we teach methods not to do those things per se, but how to manage those activities. So IDM, we see it as a leadership program. We see it as a program where we take people who once upon a time played an instrument really, really well. You played design really well, or you played business instrument really well. You play the engineering instrument really well. But now you're going to come and learn how to put those people together to create an ensemble. And you're going to manage that ensemble to create beautiful products like the ones I showed you just a few slides ago. So that's where the magic is. That's why we have a heart in the center. The heart is also there because we really feel strongly about doing the right thing and having integrity in everything that we do. You can't do that all the time. You can't always get it right. People make mistakes, but you can always aspire to that. And so that's a very strong kind of philosophy and undercurrent to IDM. We would love our alumni to become people like this. And these are people who are business leaders. They're entrepreneurs. They're innovators. They are people who challenge the status quo. But most importantly, I think these people have courage. They have the courage to believe in a new way of thinking and to take action on that. And those are the type of people we want here. And if you don't become one of these people or as successful as these people, it's fine by me. But what I really care about is that you have an originality, and you have the courage to take action on your unique originality. So, we want to create or put out into the world people with vision, people with passion, people with love. Yeah, we say that word a lot. And hopefully people with some methods and skills to provide structure, to take action and change the game and sort of change the way and evolve society in a positive way. Here's a slide of our current cohort. They just started about 4 weeks ago, and we're just so excited to have them. And this is our mission. IDM's mission is to enable the learning and development of extraordinary, innovative leaders that will bring new levels of creativity, vision, and integrity to business and society. Now, we want people to be successful in business, but really it's sort of a stepping stone to improving society. Right now, it seems that society is really affected by the flow of money, and that's why we care about that. We want people to become wealthy in this program or after this program so that they can impact society in a positive way with the philosophy and integrity that hopefully we all kind of can support and nourish in each other. And one of the big elements of our cohorts is that element of togetherness and supporting each other and networking and moving forward and knowing that there are other like-minded people from prior cohorts that are out in the world that are also looking to connect and enable and facilitate this mission. So at IDM, the way we do that, we provide a design innovation culture. So that's like a design studio kind of environment, with business and engineering mixed in. We teach and use the design process as a foundation for solving complex problems, murky problems, emotional problems. And we also use that design process as a way to give us leadership capabilities that we would not otherwise have. It's very hard to develop leadership attributes in oneself. And it ends up that the human-centered design process can actually help us do that. So we try to teach that and enable that in our students. We try to make things inspiring here. We want the environment and the teaching and the students, we want the energy to be inspiring and positive. And we do that by doing our best to select extraordinary people for the program. We don't always get that right, but I think we do a pretty darn good job. But it really takes, like any relationship in any group, it does take effort to maintain that in a way that keeps everyone on track and having a positive energy. This is a slide of our classroom, and that's last year's cohort, and I think that's Steve Eppinger just going around and looking in on an exercise that he was conducting. Our cohort comes from all over the world. You can study this slide afterwards if you'd like, but just from, I don't know, it looks like probably 24 countries, and that's just growing. IDM itself is about, we're in our 5th year of operation, or our 5th cohort, and so this is growing all the time. Diversity in terms of ethnicity, but we also love diversity in terms of disciplines. Okay, we love diversity in terms of gender identification. We love diversity in terms of sexual preferences, whatever it may be. We are very open and supportive of any way of being, and we believe that all of those unique ways of being create an environment that is rich and innovative and full of beautiful, unique, new ideas that you can't get from homogenous groups of people. So we work hard at doing this. We are very committed to a balance in terms of genders, and I'm proud to say that to date we have always had a 50% balance or more, women to men. So we've been doing a good job with that. The other balance that we maintain is our cohort is usually composed of 1/3 people with design backgrounds, 1/3 with engineering backgrounds, and 1/3 with business backgrounds or entrepreneurial backgrounds. And within those backgrounds are all kinds of crazy kind of specialties. And I think I just spoke about this slide a little bit. It's a 2-year program, so we always have 2 cohorts on campus at any one time. This year we have 53 students on campus, 1 cohort with 26 students, the other with 27. I just spoke about that second bullet. The average years of experience is 6 points, working on tough problems with teams of people. So we teach a lot about how you manage teams and how you lead teams. So we like work experience. Average age is 29.5 years old. We have 52% women, and 56% of our students are international. We have some students that might do a dual degree with Sloan School, that's the business school here at MIT. And then we have students that might do a dual degree with the engineering school, and that could be in mechanical engineering or electrical engineering and computer science. As I mentioned, IDM is a 2-year program, and this slide sort of shows you what you experience here. You show up your first year in August, and you experience what we call orientation. And that's really a time for us to get to know each other and bond. And so we have some kind of fun, challenging activities in which that occurs. Then we move into the fall semester. So we're in that right now. Our first cohort is in their core in the core curriculum, that 15 units of core, and then they're also taking up to 18 units of their required electives. And in IDM, the required electives, you have to take about 27 units of engineering electives and 27 units of business electives. So those are courses that you find in the engineering schools or in the Sloan School. And so that sort of wraps up your first year. You do that, you repeat this in the spring. You may or may not do an internship in June, starting in June, coming back in August. Totally optional. It's not something that IDM guarantees or requires. We do offer a lot of leads and networking and career development to help you get an internship if that's something you want to do. I forgot to mention, in January there's this thing here at MIT that's pretty cool. It's called the Individual Activities Period, IAP. And that's a time when you can explore and take a course on something like glass blowing or something very unique you've wanted to learn, but it doesn't have to count towards any of your degree requirements. So it's a nice time to experiment. The second year is you don't take the core curriculum anymore, so that's done. Because what you'll be doing is you'll be focusing on your thesis and finishing up your required electives. And those two things will add up to about 36 units. In January, you can work on your thesis, or you could take an IAP course, or both. So there's some flexibility there. Sometimes I call this your incubator year. Some students like to start a business this year. They have an idea for a business, so they will work on launching a business over the second year. And some students will actually make that business part of their thesis. So they kind of get a lot of efficiencies of scale here, and dualities of value. So that's a very interesting year, and there's a lot of flexibility to make it what you'd like. In June, after your second year, assuming all requirements have been met, you graduate. So our curriculum, the ID core, is 30 units. And we have this sort of basically design school kind of culture, but we also add integration, the idea of integration, integrated teams, and leading integrated teams. And that's 30 units. Then we have, in the second year, actually, that slide before didn't have this on there. The second year, we're going to have ID seminar. That's 6 units, 3 units each semester. And that's where we bring designers, engineers, practitioners, thought leaders, whatever. And they come and they will be guest speakers. And the idea is to kind of inspire you on what could be for your life. They serve as these kind of models, because everyone's life is a little different. They're really wonderful examples of how you could be or how you could manifest as a professional when you leave. We have, as I mentioned, these electives for management. You need to fulfill 27 management units and 27 engineering units. And then your thesis is 24 units. So you can see that is a decent amount of work, but it's not a huge thesis, especially when you spread it over 2 semesters. In the core curriculum, in ID Lab, we are located actually across campus. There's a wonderful group called D Lab, and it's a little confusing because ID Lab is in D Lab, but D Lab is a wonderful group, and we share space with them. And so we do all kinds of things there. We have our lectures there. We practice the product development process there. We practice leadership there. We build prototypes and products and services there. We practice the human-centered design process and user-centered research. So interviews get conducted there and outside of there, actually. We talk about ergonomics and kind of synthesizing the research findings. And then another big thing we do there is we have what we call workshop, which is really designed to give insight into what it takes to actually make things. And the reason we have workshop, which is run by Andy McGinnis, is that we want our students, we want our alumni, when they leave here, if they're going to be leaders and managers of teams with people who actually make things, we want them to have respect and appreciation for the work that those people do. And so one way to do that is to have our students make stuff and realize, oh my God, this is hard. It's hard to do this. It's hard to do it right. It's hard to do it with intolerances. It's hard to read a drawing, so on and so forth. So that, I think, has been pivotal in my career as a leader, to have that appreciation and respect for everyone, right down to the production line in China. And to be able to talk intelligently with those people. And so you have credibility as a leader. And that credibility really is something that we feel strongly about at IDM. We want leaders with credibility. So the schedule for ID Lab, on this slide, you can study this later too, but it starts, it meets Mondays and Wednesdays, and it starts at 1 o'clock, and it ends at 6 o'clock. So it's pretty long, and this is similar to a design school, where you take a design studio. It would start at 1 and end at 6. And, but unlike a design studio where you work the entire time on your project, we take part of that time to give you a lecture on a method or a process that could be handy on your project. Then you have time to work on your project. That is the team time project work. And then at 4:30, we teach a skill that you might find interesting. So, how to use hand tools, power tools, machine tools, how to use 3D printers, how to use laser cutters, how to CNC, how to use Illustrator, how to thermoform, how to use, cast resins and making rubber molds and things like that. So you can study this later. I won't go into great detail. And you can see the topics for lecture. You can read those later as well. We have 3 projects in ID Lab in that core curriculum. And they are really kind of strategically designed. The first project, P1, is really designed to force each student to go deep on understanding user needs and emotions. So the key to successful products is really understanding those needs and emotions of your stakeholders. And it's been my experience in the professional world that very few people do this very well, or at least do it with intensity, the intensity and the passion that's required to truly connect deeply with your stakeholders. So we make our students do that. And it puts people a little outside their comfort zones, but they do it and they realize that, hey, it's not so bad, and they get comfortable. The second project is designed to address another big deficit I see in the professional world, and that is people with understanding of manufacturing. A lot of people design products, a lot of companies design products, but they really don't understand manufacturing methods or techniques. So we have a project where the students develop a product very quickly and have to manufacture 50 units and sell them all. And that's done in about 7 weeks. So you go from being a student to an entrepreneur with profit in 7 weeks. That's a very exciting project, but it gives a lot of insight into what it takes to design a product so that it can be manufactured, or DFM, for those of you who like acronyms. And then our third project is a 14-week full semester project, and that is designing and developing a product, and actually kind of a business in that time frame, with the idea that you would hand off your design to a contract manufacturer for large-scale production. So we kind of go through these different scales of business, of managing and operating a business, and so we think it's a nice balance of all those things. A big part of this is practice. So, I think some people come into the program thinking that we're going to give them like a recipe on how to do everything. There's no such thing. There's no recipe for how to create a successful product. There is a process that you need to go through. There's a bunch of steps, so you just need to go through the steps, but it's kind of like playing tennis. If you can't, you're not going to hit a beautiful serve the first time you learn all the steps to hitting a beautiful serve in tennis. You have to practice 10,000 times, and after that, you'll probably be serving quite well. So IDM is the same way. This is about practice, and like an athlete, and you have to bring your kind of some intensity and passion and the ability to work out, and do this stuff. We're action oriented. All right. We on that P3, those are the topics of those projects are either generated by students or they are sponsored by companies around the area, and so that makes it exciting. The products can be tangible, three-dimensional, hardware, or they could be services, UI, UX, a web-based product. Or it could be a social or economic or societal solution to one of those problems. So we're very open, and we love to see the process that we teach applied to all kinds of different challenges. All right, and then those companies that do become sponsors, we tend to have a very intimate ongoing involvement with them, and so there's a lot of great interaction between the students and the sponsors. So I thought I'd show you some slides of Project 1, 2, and 3. So Project 1, this was done, in this case, Susie, who's sitting there third to the right, decided that she was going to investigate what it is to carry things when you're homeless. And so she went out onto the streets of Boston and Cambridge, and she interviewed and observed folks that are homeless and really immersed herself in that culture. I love this photograph. It just shows that she really immersed herself, and that's what it takes. You really need to be passionate about understanding and connecting and developing empathy and actually some love for the people that you're designing products for. And so, these are other photographs from her experience. And she ended up, giving a wonderful presentation that expressed the needs and emotions of those folks. Project 2, that's more about manufacturing. So here's Chin, and she is making, I forgot what this product is. Oh, it's like a little storage container that is modular, but kind of snaps together using rare earth magnets. You can just see little silver dots on the sides. So that was a really cool, and here she is in the D-Lab shop, basically manufacturing. Great experience. Here's a team that made a bronze casting of a bowl with a beautiful walnut ring around it. I think it was called Saturn or Saturn something. And that was from last year. Very beautiful. They made 50 of those. This is once you've made all of these products in your manufacturing project, you sell them. And so we have this sort of big sales event. We call it a sales gala. And so we set up, each student team sets up a booth over at Sloan School in E62 in the cafeteria. And so this is one team called Botanica, and they were selling their planter, and they sold all of their units. And it's a really exciting time, big celebration, and we have a good time. Project 3, that's a 14-week project, as I mentioned, and so in this case we had a project with Oath Pizza, and they the challenge here was to create a better pizza box that would keep the pizza warm, but also keep it from getting too soggy. So there's all kinds of testing that was going on, and here's the team presenting to the class. And this is another team that designed a device that would help you brew coffee perfectly every time. And so you can see it there underneath the Chemex. So to the right with the kind of sort of a peach or pink color and a metallic cylindrical surface. That was their device. That was a fully functioning prototype, with electronic software and user interface and a beautiful design. And the students present not only their prototypes, but also their business model on how this product would be profitable, how it would be manufactured, and how it would be sold, and what the retail distribution channels would be, what their supply chain would be. So they really put a lot of thought into if this were a real product that was going to be launched by a company, an existing company, or if it was a startup or something like that. We work with wonderful people like Brian Matt, who is the CEO and founder of Altitude, which is just a world-class product development firm that was recently acquired by Accenture. So we have people like this coming in, and not only do they sort of teach, but they also help guide the program and work with me to kind of make sure that we are as current and innovative in our teaching as we can possibly be. We work with all kinds of companies. A lot of our this is a list of companies. Again, you can study this slide later, but these are companies that have either hired our alumni or have provided internships. So a lot of wonderful names on that list. We have about 40% of our students are entrepreneurial. The other 60% go get jobs with the companies on the prior slide. But 40% of our students start companies. So these are some of the companies that our students have started, and they're all in various stages, from having been acquired to raising funding. So very proud of our entrepreneurial students. And then after 2 years, we have a beautiful graduation ceremony. We do it on a boat in Boston Harbor. It's just a beautiful experience, very celebratory, and usually it's very emotional because we do become usually very close with our students, and we love our students. We're very proud of them, and sort of sorry to see them go, but we also want to see the world impacted by their work. So they should get the hell out of here and do something good. So for those of you that are interested in applying, you can now apply. Applications are open. Our admissions deadline this year is January 15th, 2020. You can go to the URL you see there, idm.mit.edu/apply. Again, we just some things that we really require from you. We require that you have at least 3 years of real-world work experience. The more epic and painful that is, the better. So if your experience is not with a Fortune 50 company, that's fine by us, because usually if you're in a startup or you are, in some developing country trying to solve complicated problems and never being successful, that's exciting to us. So we want to hear about that. We need 3 letters of recommendation. We'll need you to submit either GRE scores or GMAT scores. If you're an international student and English is not your first language, we would need to see some English proficiency test scores. So that would be the TOEFL or IELTS. We'll need a resume from you. We will ask for a vision statement from you and a portfolio from you. And these things are all explained on our website in our application process. After these things are submitted, we select people to be interviewed. We call them finalists, and we'll then contact you to come in for an interview, which is usually very exciting. Okay, and if you would like more information, this is a slide that gives contact information. My email address is there. You can also see an email address there for IDM admissions. And many people will see the email to the IDM admissions, so you'll be sure to get a reply from that. Okay, so that is it for me. Now what we're going to do is we're going to invite in Western and David, and they're going to join me, and we're going to answer any questions that you folks may have, and I think we're going to change the video feed to, come on in, David. Hey, have a seat. Hey. Welcome. We're not on screen yet, I don't think. Western. Hello. Great. All right. So there we are. You can see us on that screen there. Okay, good. Great. So let's see. Usually we have some questions here. All right. So, okay. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves? How about that?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So my name is Dave Ludkin. I first year here at IDM and originally from Cleveland, Ohio. And my background is actually kind of all over the place if you look at it. I worked for the Obama campaign in 2008. I did some sustainable agriculture work, some community outreach for nonprofits that I was assistant director of. But most recently I worked in behavior science and designing interventions, and also developing a network that allows people, mainly researchers, to run their experiments and come up with findings and insights at a rate that took it from 8 years for high school experiments down to 8 months.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Western.
Hi, my name is Western Bonim, and I also have a background that's kind of all over the place to a certain extent. I started off in fashion design and then kind of went into entrepreneurship, and then went back into fashion design, went into education, started teaching at university, went into trend forecasting over in Europe, lived in Berlin for 3 years, started a kids' fashions, I guess you could say STEAM program that I started and ran in Marin County in San Francisco for 4 years. And also do some writing. I'm a guest contributor to Forbes, and now I'm here at IDM. So.
And we're glad to have you both. Yes. Thank you
So
very much. Yeah. So far.
Yeah.
Right. In about 7 months, that's when we hit our little trough. Okay. So let's see how we are there. All right. Okay, we have a question, and so this is, I guess, to me. What kind of students is MIT IDM looking for? Well, I would say just like these two, but to be more descriptive, we really want people who are independent thinkers that have ideas for themselves, have strong beliefs in following their own path, and they want to be enabled on that path with some concepts and ideas and structures that they can apply to the challenges that they're facing. So, we want people who take responsibility for their own success. We don't want people who are coming here to get a degree and, a brand and then go out and work for the man. That's not what this is about. This is about actually being the man. Okay, so we want people who will do that, but they'll become the man or the woman, and they're going to do that in a way that's good for the world, good for society. They're going to use, their power and their influence and their money, hopefully, that they'll have someday, to really change the fabric of society. So that's what we want, and we definitely don't want people coming here that want to be spoon-fed. Okay, this is a graduate program at MIT, one of the world's most, prestigious institutions, not that that matters, but, and then we are not only there, but we are even a step higher than that in terms of our expectations. Our students are kind of self-learners, so I hope that does, but we want people with vision as well. We want them to have just a beautiful vision. Yeah. Okay. So I think I answered that. Maybe I didn't. But student panelists, what about your backgrounds led you to pursue integrated design and management?
Cool. Want to start this one?
Sure. Well, I started off as an artist and a designer, not realizing I was an entrepreneur, and sort of jumped into entrepreneurship because I just knew that I had ideas that I really wanted to bring to life, and that seemed to be the only way to do it, because when I went to other people to ask them to do it, they just thought I was crazy. So I started to see that I was into entrepreneurship, and then when I started to learn more about some of the cutting edge materials innovation, IoT, AI, products being developed, I realized, hey, I don't really understand enough about engineering. So that's part of what led me to it. That's the more practical side. On the more emotional side, I have always believed that emotions and love and empathy were really the core to engaging with people, to connecting people to product, to exciting people about product, to giving other people the skills that they needed to live passionate, fulfilled lives, and that's what I really, really want to do with my life. So I started looking for ways to bring all those together. I started looking for graduate programs that offered that. When I stumbled on IDM and saw that not only did they bring all that together, but they were completely about passion, courage, heart, I was like, this is the perfect fit for me. This is going to be my dream place to go. So.
Awesome.
So far, it is not disappointing. I'm walking on air. So
Awesome. 7 more months though. 7 more months.
Yeah. So for me, I think the most important thing in my life, so I can make sure that I'm doing something that makes me happy and fulfilled, is to have passion and purpose. Those two seem like they're the same, but they're actually different with maybe a little bit of overlap. And the first is just like a passion for something and things you care about. And I really care about a lot of things: the environment, changing a academic system so students can actually learn things that are going to make them successful in life and happy. That was actually impacting these things. And then recently I started seeing how design could actually be implemented in a kind of a space that wasn't used to having. And I was in the behavior science space and actually developing a network for it in the business model. The entire thing was just born out of a design process of exploring how to actually make this thing totally different, flip it on its head, do something that no one else has done before, and actually figure out what the users need from us. And once I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that's so powerful, and it was so exciting and enjoyable. And I wanted to know, like, where else could I then apply that to places that I feel just so strongly about changing. And this is the kind of program that can let me take this framework and then reapply it to new places, and there's really no limit to where you can imagine actually taking this kind of thought process.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great, thank you. All right, next student question. Matt, for students who do not immediately pursue entrepreneurial endeavors, what are some companies that have hired IDM students? Which roles do they typically lean towards? Okay, so I have a really bad memory, but I'll do my best here. So we have students that go, of all places, into oil companies, like Schlumberger. But what we love about that is that their role at Schlumberger is to help Schlumberger kind of reinvent themselves, and as an energy provider, as opposed to what they currently are, a fossil fuel provider. And so that's very typical. We have people that went to Amazon to also go on to an innovation team. I think a lot of our students go on to innovation teams, which is wonderful. And so they help kind of form strategies and visions for the companies that they're employed by, that help redefine those companies. And so I just love that our students are doing that, because I know they'll be thinking about the earth and our society and our spirits as individuals, and they'll design solutions that kind of elevate all those things as best they can, and do it through business as opposed to trying to get government to kind of mandate it, right? Because that's a tough ask, especially these days. So that's the type of stuff they do. I think anybody else here have anybody I should mention? Janice? Yeah. Well, that's a startup. Yeah. So we have students that are,
Entrepreneurial students.
Yeah. So entrepreneurial students, they have all kinds of great businesses. But I think it was about what students went into existing companies.
Yeah. If you go on LinkedIn, that's what I did. I just looked up IDM, like people who had been in the program. I was like, whoa. I was like, okay. And like that's what was actually a validating moment for me to be like, okay, these are all these different places that you can take this.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, just as sort of the person who kind of made this all happen, one of the big uncertainties I had, early on was, okay, will our graduates be employed, right? Will the world see the value that we're baking in, or trying to bake in? And it's just been breathtaking how, that right now, sort of in our business kind of culture, design methods, there's such a, you have like huge business consulting firms gobbling up design firms. Why? Because design is so necessary to doing good business these days. So I think we were like just ahead of that kind of wave that's hitting, now. And so, more than ever, I think the world is looking for people that are like IDM alumni. So that's been great. All right, next question. Student panelists. How did you approach your application portfolio? Great, I'm glad they're asking you and not me.
Yeah, so I'll start. First thing is like quick tip, take pictures of things, get media. I had to go back and search through stuff and create some things that I just couldn't find anymore. So that's just a good tip to that. But I actually emailed, I think I talked to Janice about this, and I asked do I have to fall into one of these three categories? Because I have some engineering work, I have some design work, and I have business management work. And I wasn't even sure exactly which one of those I fit mostly into. I knew that I want to pursue design more than anything else, but those three groups weren't perfect for me. She was be creative with it, present it the way you want to. And so I focused on showing the different sides of me, showing what I cared about, showing the things that actually meant most to me. Maybe they weren't the most impressive projects, but they were really important to me. And above all, there's the need to actually just explain how I approach problems and how I look at solving them and how I analyze what that solution was and what did I learn from it. Because I think that is such a big part of what makes this program great, is that I think a certain way and I'm going to approach it a certain way, but everyone here does something slightly different. And when you get to see those different approaches and those thought processes, and we're listening to what the work that people have done before they came here, it's really just inspiring and impressive. And if you can show off who you are as an individual, I think that's probably the most important thing you can do with it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would agree with Dave. I really tried to show sort of a range of who I was, what I cared about, my thought process, I think most of all. And I figured I was applying to MIT, so I wanted to show my most creative ideas where I'd really let myself dream big and think outside the box. So, and it was all over the place. It was everything from representing the school that I had started to some products that I tried to do and not gotten off the ground because I didn't have enough business experience at the time. So it was all of those things, and even in my essay, I really kind of took a risk and just put what I truly believed in, and I guess that worked.
Yeah. So this is just great advice, and what we're looking for, what we want to see in the portfolio is really how you think. What your process is for solving problems. So we ask that you dedicate 8 to 10 slides just to that process on a particular problem that you attempted to solve. Don't really care if the problem was successfully solved or not. It's like, again, back to a sports analogy. You're not going to win every game you play. The question is, are you continually improving the fundamentals, and do you have the right strategy and the right process? Because then in the aggregate, you will win more than you will lose. So don't worry about that, but we just want to see your process. And I love both what you guys said, and sometimes you've done stuff that you never documented. So you're going to dig through old stuff in your attic and then take photographs and do whatever it takes. Put it together, right? Tell a story about what you've done.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please, yeah.
I was just going to say, for me, it was a really cathartic experience because I was digging through old things, and you do so much in life, and you forget half of what you've even done. So it's almost like meeting yourself again, and seeing who you are, and like, wow, I was thinking like that back then. Oh, that's really cool. So I would say have fun with it too. Like, I know we tend to kind of clamp down and get really stressed about these things, but just really try to be joyful with it. So.
Yeah, great. Okay, next question. This is for me. For people with backgrounds that overlap all three areas of focus, do you feel that the program will provide the same level of benefit that someone with a more focused background would receive? I almost want to say that it would have more benefit. One of the challenges that I think I've mentioned a couple of times here is that sometimes we have students that just want, like, they come in as an engineer and they want to become a designer. They're not trying to become a manager or a leader. They're trying to change disciplines. And so we don't want that. So if you have understanding in all three areas, I think there's less of a propensity to do that. You're going to see, I think you'll be a better manager because you'll have experience in those. So I like that idea. We're still going to have to put you in a bucket. So we will pick one of those things to put you in. But, it could just be random at that. So, okay, we'll go to the next question.
And just to kind of throw something on that, it's fun to watch people like dive into design when they've never touched before, like watching people the other day use Adobe for the first time and like exciting and experience it.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like I have since I have experience in each of them, I'm kind of jealous. It's fun to watch like that like spark. You're like, yeah, isn't that cool?
That first time,
And,
I think Titus says.
You always wear a different hat despite what bucket you're in.
Yeah. And there's these incredibly amazing, brand new learning experiences, right? But at the same time, there's stuff that you've heard a million times because you're an expert in that. Like we're teaching Illustrator for the first time to many people. But those designers in the audience that have been using Illustrator for 15 years are like, am I getting my money's worth? Is this worth my time? So it's with a program like this, with this kind of diversity, this sort of purposeful diversity, that's one of the potential pitfalls. And so what we tell those people who are experts is that if you already know the material, then you should challenge yourself by teaching that material to your peers. And we probably don't do a good enough job of saying that frequently enough, but that's the assumption, is that if you know the material, you should just jump in and start teaching it. Don't just sort of sit there passively wondering what the program should do for you.
Can I add something? Because I think that's a pretty quick answer. Yes. Do you feel the skills and techniques which lead to great physical product design are largely the same as those used for digital design? I would have to say yes.
Yeah, the answer is that yes. Yeah.
I just want to say that if you're approaching this from the thought place of I'm trying to get this specific degree, try to put that aside for a moment and think of it more as this reaching out for doing what you've longed to do your whole entire life, because there really are no words to describe what this cohort is like, the actual experience of it, the experience of working with people who have tons of business experience and watching as a designer how their minds work and how they approach problems. I feel like I'm learning so much just even from the questions that other people ask, and I've never met a group of people that are so amazing and wonderful. I mean, Matt has done an incredible job. So the experience of that, because most of us don't, and Giannis,
and team,
and Melissa, yeah. I didn't mean to leave anyone out.
Yeah.
But the experience of that in and of itself has so much value that's hard to put into words. So.
Yeah, you almost answered the question that just came up here, the new question, which is Western and David.
Oh.
As new students, what has exceeded your expectations so far? What have you been most surprised by? So one is the cohort, as you just mentioned. What else? Anything?
Do you have something to add?
Kind of just about the cohort. It was just a little bit into it. It's really impressive how you guys get all these people and like you're able to really select for like culture and personality and like these shared values. And I asked Tonya, or maybe it was Andy, I asked, how do you do that like so effectively? And he wouldn't tell me. But it's a really hard thing to do because I've watched hiring a lot of places I've worked, and it's difficult to do that. And it's impressive that like you've been able to bring people together. They're from all over the world. That it's not easy to have those connections so quickly. And most surprised by like I'm so astounded by people who are coming to the U.S. for the first time and diving into it and are being fearless. And the program, it's, feeds the fire. You're going quickly. Like, you're being asked to talk to strangers right away and get into these conversations and do things that are comfortable that I've spent like a lot of time being forced to do in campaigns and stuff, and I still have hesitation. And so it's really admirable the way that people are just able to go for it and be all in, and it gives me a lot of just courage to do the same when I may feel uncomfortable.
Great.
I guess for me is what's blown me away is the level of kindness. Because, there's a lot of people who talk about it's okay to fail and collaborate, and they throw those words around. But to actually experience people without even any provocation who are just living, being, and acting that every moment that you're around them is just, I think that's really something special.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, and I would just add that, there's really only one way to do poorly in IDM, and that's just to not try. I think the one thing we expect that probably we wouldn't be very kind about is if you came to this program and you did not put 110% into IDM. That's the only thing we expect. Everything else can go to hell in a handbasket, and we will love you and take care of you and do whatever we can. But we just expect that level of kind of passion. Okay, and the last question. For those with a design background, do the students generally find the engineering courses to be challenging, or are they geared towards students from diverse backgrounds? So this was a huge fear that I had as a designer myself. Would I be putting designers in jeopardy at MIT? It ends up we have never had a designer have a tough time with engineering courses. I mean, at least that I'm aware of. But, when we look at the grades, and we look at all the grades that everyone's, how they're doing elsewhere on campus, everybody has passed through with a minimum scathing. So if you're a designer, my advice to you is don't worry about it one bit. There's plenty of options here that will fit your particular interest level and ability level. Great. So, would you like to? Yeah.
Well, I just actually came from human systems engineering, and it's only been a little bit of time. It's a course, yes. It's only been a little bit of time, but we have our first problem set, and I've looked at what the syllabus is going to be, and it's going to be challenging. But you're going to MIT, you're going to grad school. The idea is to be challenged regardless of what you're doing. But what's nice is the TAs, the teachers, whoever it is, there's resources to get help when you want it. And so when that's you give it 110%, you're good to go. It's as long as you're willing to work, there's resources there to help you. Mm-hmm. And don't be fearful of it. Embrace it, enjoy it being challenging, because that's when you're going to have the most growth.
That's so true.
I was going to say, I really, as a designer, I really enjoy the fact that I have access to brilliant people in business and brilliant people in engineering to actually throw ideas around, and people who want to maybe form teams around something like that. Where else as a designer do you get those kind of opportunities? I think it's a really special thing. I'm taking an aerospace biomedical engineering class, and it's pretty daunting in many ways, but it's also fascinating, and I think it's really stretching me to think in different ways. So I would second what Dave's saying there. And there are lots of engineering classes that are a little bit less intense that you can fit into if you want to kind of feel a little bit more comfortable and not quite as much out of your comfort zone. So, but really the access to the minds here as a design person. And I've actually been talking to engineers in that class, and they're like, yeah, but you bring something else, and that's really refreshing to hear. So,
Great. Thank you both so much.
Yeah,
great. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to email the program, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you, and goodbye.